גבירותיי ורבותיי, שלום רב, ברוכים הבאים לאוניברסיטת תל אביב. אני אבקש מכולם לשבת. למען אורחינו מחוץ לארץ, הטקס היום יתנהל ברובו באנגלית. אנא תכבו טלפונים ניידים, תודה רבה. Good afternoon, excellencies, distinguished guests. Welcome to all of you who have come to be with us at this special honorary degree conferment ceremony at Tel Aviv University. Before we begin, may I remind you all to please turn off your cell phones. Thank you. I would like at this time to welcome the deans of Tel Aviv University who are seated on the stage. I now invite the members of the Presidium to please enter the hall. Please rise, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Yosef Klafter, President of Tel Aviv University. Professor Aaron Shai, Rector of Tel Aviv University. Dr. Giora Yaron, Chairperson of the Executive Council. It gives me pleasure now to invite the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Dr. Angela Merkel. Kindly be seated, ladies and gentlemen. I now invite the President of Tel Aviv University, Professor Yosef Klafter, to address you.
Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Dr. Angela Merkel, Chairman of the Tel Aviv University Executive Council, Dr. Giora Yaron, Rector of Tel Aviv University, Aaron Shai, Deans and colleagues, distinguished guests. A well-known chemist once wrote, "For me, chemistry represents an indefinite cloud of future potentialities. Like Moses, from that cloud, I expect my law, the principles of order in me, around me, and in the world." This chemist was the author and Holocaust survivor, Primo Levi, who famously connected between the orderly world of science and the far messier world of human experience. Our honorary today, Dr. Angela Merkel, originally a chemist, can be credited by doing the same thing. Now, as one chemist speaking about another, I believe that Dr. Merkel's training as a scientist bears directly on her leadership style. She takes a rational approach to problem solving. She is passionate about understanding the issues. She seeks innovation. She has staying power, and she looks for concrete and measurable results. Moreover, not only has she brought the science skill to the political sphere, but she has also used politics to promote science. In an article published 5 years ago on German science policy, Chancellor Merkel wrote, "We want to offer German science and research conditions that rival with the best in the world. Our benchmarks are excellence, internationality, and freedom." These are very powerful words. They speak to me personally as a scientist. They speak to the university, to our university, which champions these same values, and they speak to the state of Israel, which relies on science and technology to fulfill our national and global potential. In conferring upon Dr. Merkel an honorary doctorate, Tel Aviv University honors her statecraft, her social responsibility, and her guiding friendship towards Israel and the Jewish people. Perhaps what is most admirable, though, is the modesty she has kept as a woman in science, trying to bring order into our world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Klafter. I now invite the rector of Tel Aviv University, Professor Aaron Shai, to speak to you.
Good afternoon. On behalf of our scholarly community here at Tel Aviv University, we are privileged to present the degree of Doctor Honoris Causa to Dr. Angela Merkel, the Honorable Chancellor of Germany, in the presence of the esteemed public gathered here today. Dr. Angela Merkel assumed office in 2005, but she has been leader of the Christian Democratic Union since the year 2000 and has served, as we are all aware, as the President of the European Council and the chairperson of the G8. Chancellor Dr. Merkel embodies a unique and admirable example of leadership. She also has a strong academic background, as has been mentioned, with a doctorate in quantum chemistry. While still a student in East Germany, the GDR, she was active in productive and important initiatives. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, Dr. Merkel was involved in the democracy movement, and her career in the past 20 years is remarkable and astounding. Dr. Merkel became the first female chair of her party, which many had described as male-dominated and socially conservative. She advocated strong transatlantic partnership and was instrumental in crystallizing German-American friendship. Dr. Merkel, our esteemed guest here today, is without doubt one of the most influential and appreciated women in the entire world today. Her tireless and emphasis on Europe has been especially important. Indeed, as Europe experiences a dialectical process of both unification and disintegration into splinter national groups, her loud and clear assertion of genuine liberal integration is a blessed, welcome, and comforting voice. Indeed, one of the clearest lessons of the Second World War is that nationalistic separatism is undesirable and should be rejected outright. Dr. Merkel has embarked on and still is navigating an original political course combining free market ideas with deep and careful social thoughtfulness to the benefit of German nationals, European citizens in general, the true sovereigns of the rising European nation. As for the attitude towards the Jewish national movement and the state that movement established 62 years ago, Israel, Chancellor Merkel has proven to be one of the greatest supporters of our vision. Israel and Germany maintain mutual cultural and scientific collaboration, including youth and student exchange programs. Here, at Tel Aviv University, we enjoy a most fruitful academic relationship with Germany, and we have no doubt that these projects will continue as our joint academic binational partnership endures. Unified Germany has adopted all the necessary means to guarantee Israel's strategic security. We here are aware of that consistent policy, and as a modest token of appreciation, have gathered in this hall to welcome and bestow upon her our genuine sense of obligation and gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shai. I would now ask Petteri Ivonen to please come up to the stage. He is a student at the Adler Buchman International Program for Outstanding Foreign Students at Tel Aviv University's Buchman Mehta School of Music. He will play Bach selections from Partita number 3 in E major. Thank you. Thank you very much, Petteri Ivonen. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the conferment of the Doctor Philosophiae Honoris Causa. I invite Professor Yosef Klafter, Professor Aaron Shai, and Dr. Angela Merkel to please come forward. הסנאט של אוניברסיטת תל אביב החליט לכבד את אנגלה מרקל לאות הוקרה על מעמדה כמדינאית וכמנהיגת עולם למופת, הדוגלת בחירות, בזכויות האדם ובשלטון החוק, על הישגיה בשירות הפרלמנט והעם הגרמני במשך יותר משני עשורים, על מאבקה למען מדיניות מדעית עם אחריות חברתית, ולאות הוקרה מיוחדת על תמיכתה העקבית, הגלויה והבלתי מעורערת בישראל, הן אישית והן בתפקידה כקנצלרית גרמניה. על מסירותה לבניית קשרים בין יהודים ובין לא יהודים בגרמניה וברחבי אירופה. על הגינוי התקיף של גילויי גזענות ואנטישמיות, ועל תרומתה להמשך היחסים החמים והמיוחדים בין גרמניה לישראל, ולהכתירה בתואר דוקטור לשם כבוד לפילוסופיה של אוניברסיטת תל אביב. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm now pleased to invite Dr. Merkel to address the audience. You're welcome to use the headphones for English translation.
Folgen.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident,
Mr. President, honorable deans, supporters and members of the University of Tel Aviv, dear guests, dear students. It gives me great pleasure to be here back in Tel Aviv on a very special occasion today at the renowned University of Tel Aviv. And I would like to thank you for the friendly words you found on my behalf and for the cordial reception. That I am granted the honor of receiving the honorary doctorate of the University of Tel Aviv today strengthens my personal bonds and attachment with the State of Israel. For me, this is a very special honor. It is a recognition of what I've done, and it will motivate me further to continue in my endeavors. It stimulates me afresh to do what I can to further strengthen relations between Israel and Germany and to deepen our relationship. I received the doctorate with respect to my earlier scientific activities, and indeed that was part of my life. I have been able to identify some former colleagues amongst the gentlemen and the ladies sitting here on the rostrum. But I received the honorary doctorate also because of my work as a politician. It's good to be at a university where exact sciences have found a home. And despite the pleasure I take in politics and various kinds of sciences, my heart continues to beat for what you subsume under the term of exact sciences here. Let me thank you from the depths of my heart for this very special honor of bestowing upon me the honorary doctorate of the University of Tel Aviv. Indeed, it is science, and it was scientists that have a very special place in the relations between both our countries, and that has been so for years. More than 50 years ago, it was scientists who prepared the ground for a rapprochement between the, at the time, very young states, the State of Israel and the Federal Republic of Germany. Their contribution in preparing the ground for the resumption of official relations between both our countries, for a rapprochement of both our countries, cannot be overestimated. Yesterday, during our bilateral exchanges, during the intergovernmental consultations between Israel and Germany, the area of scientific cooperation, in the field of research, played again a very prominent role. The fact that both our countries were able to bring about a rapprochement was anything but to be taken for granted. And the same is true for the friendship that became possible as a consequence. The inhuman crime of the Shoah, the murder of 6 million Jews, inflicted immeasurable suffering upon the Jewish people. This unspeakable break with civilization trampled underfoot Jewish culture and tradition, led to the murder of millions of people and it eliminated numerous families. It tore apart our common history in Germany and in Europe. Germany, and I speak as the Federal Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, acknowledges its enduring responsibility for that darkest chapter of its history. Germany acknowledges this enduring responsibility because we know that only in accepting this historical responsibility can we lay a basis on which to build our future. Never to forget what has happened. And this is the more important today as the voices of the survivors are becoming weaker. For the generation of those who were subjected to unspeakable suffering will soon no longer be with us. Therefore, my generation is now called upon to ensure that our sense of Germany's historical responsibility will be handed down to coming generations. And this is exactly why our federal president, Christian Wulff, took his daughter along on his first visit to the State of Israel. The enduring responsibility obliges us in several ways. Ask the German politicians. First and foremost, we have to ensure that wherever racism, anti-Semitism and xenophobia falls on fertile ground, wherever a state leaves room and allows this contempt for humanity, Germany will stand up and fight it. My second point, our commitment to the security of the State of Israel as a Jewish, democratic state is part of my country's raison d'etre. And my third point, Germany and Israel are closely linked by shared democratic values and interests, political and economic interests. We are shaping our future as reliable partners and close friends. Ladies and gentlemen, although I would like to focus on the broad spectrum of Israeli-German relations during this special ceremony today, I cannot begin without turning an eye on the ongoing events and developments in the region. Let us look to Tunisia first. There seems to be an opportunity for a fresh political start. The Tunisian people has not backed down in its yearning for freedom and democracy, because in the long run no people is willing to back down with respect to its yearning for peace and democracy. And of course, our eyes are also turned to Egypt these days. I very much hope that in the face of the ongoing protests and demonstrations in the cities of Egypt, people will renounce the use of violence against unarmed civilians. I very much hope that the freedom of demonstration and assembly and information will be respected in order to allow a peaceful reform process, because this is what it is all about, a peaceful reform process, instead of chaos and violence. Let us not forget that Egypt is the Arab neighbor which has enjoyed the longest period of peace with Israel, a period of peace that was accompanied by security and hopefully will continue to be accompanied by security. That is my wish. The importance of this is obvious when we look to developments in Lebanon. The developments there are reason to be very concerned, and we have to do our utmost to ensure that Lebanon does not suffer a relapse into an unpredictable, volatile domestic crisis, the consequences of which would be only difficult to predict. The more so as we find ourselves in a situation where Iran threatens peace and security in Israel and in the Middle East as a whole because of its aggressive policy. If Iran continues to refuse to negotiate about its nuclear program, we are determined to continue down the road of tighter sanctions. Tighter sanctions would become unavoidable then. In the light of these recent developments, I express my conviction that the Mid-East conflict cannot and must not remain unsolved. To put it in different words, negotiations need to be and must be resumed as soon as possible. The present standstill does not help anyone, but it's equally obvious that a sustainable solution demands political determination. It demands painful compromises on the part of everyone involved, on both sides, that is. The objective of these endeavors have to be two states, a democratic Jewish state, the State of Israel, living side by side with a viable Palestinian state. Wherever, and I want to be very clear about this, wherever Germany and Europe with the support of the United States of America, can support this process. They are willing to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, the Mideast peace process and the security situation in general are, of course, important topics, and they figured prominently in my exchanges yesterday with your Prime Minister Netanyahu. But the focus of my visit were the third Israeli-German intergovernmental consultations, and thus the further shaping of our relations. This relationship is unique. As I said, it is supported by and based on shared values. And it is the relationship between both our countries and peoples that ought to be the focus of this festive moment. In developing further Israeli and German ties, we were able to rely on the support of many courageous people over the decades. We were able to build on people who, despite the fact that they had to suffer the horrors of the Shoah, felt the strength to dare a new beginning. Amongst them, many Jewish inhabitants who spoke the German language. Their knowledge of the German language and of the German culture made them important bridge builders between both our countries. They spoke out on behalf of Germany and Germany's interest here in Israel. They established academic and scientific contacts, initiated a youth exchange long before official relations between both our states were established. And that was something that at the time could not be taken for granted. Today it is the strong foundation on which we're able to build. We owe it to these very people that we've been able to do so. Let us remind you of the volunteer services active in the region. This morning I met young German and Israeli volunteers in Jerusalem who are active in the framework of Action Reconciliation Service for Peace, paying their service in Israel or in Germany. What was especially important about this encounter was that I had the chance to meet with two survivors of the Shoah, and they reported to me how important these human contacts were for them that resulted from the Action Reconciliation Service for Peace. Important for them personally, but through these contacts they were able to continue to learn to live with their past. It gives me hope when I hear that more than 1,500 volunteers have participated in these projects since its foundation in 1961. Young people, Israelis and Germans, and their recollections today, their reports about their experiences were deeply moving today. You know, they told us about people who started to speak again after having fallen silent and enjoying the time that they were spending with young Germans. They shared their experiences with us, as did the young Jewish people, Israeli people who had spent some time in Germany. I believe that it is the personal encounters of this kind that form the basis of strong and sustainable relations. And I'm delighted that for 10 years now it's been possible to have this exchange amongst young Germans and Israelis. 50 years of young German people traveling to Israel, and 10 years now where we have young Israelis going to Germany as part of this initiative. We must not tire in our efforts to encourage the young generation to dare take those steps and get to know their counterparts here. It's possible to do so, the better, the longer the projects are, because you really have some time to get to know the country and the people of the country you're in. Nothing, I'm confident, can replace that personal exchange, that personal contact, be it in the framework of scientific exchange, cultural exchanges, or youth exchanges. We politicians are called upon. We have to create the framework conditions required. And this is why our policy for the young people was the focus of this year's Israeli-German intergovernmental consultations. Youth exchange between Israel and Germany, and that's a good piece of information, has grown continuously over the last few years. Last year, in 2010, we had roughly 9,000 young people of both countries participate in such exchange programs. And I'm especially delighted to see that the number of participants is on the rise. Yesterday we signed a joint declaration in which we once again express our intent to further intensify this exchange. Our relations and encounters also received fresh impulses as a consequence of the Israeli-German Future Forum. a common joint foundation by both countries. The purpose of the Future Forum is to build up a new network. We want to involve and include young people in joint projects. Ladies and gentlemen, science and research continue to be a strong pillar of relations between Israel and Germany. And I think it is on the road to a knowledge-based society that a close partnership between both countries offers itself up. One reason for that is that Israel invests more than above average in science and research and has an excellent reputation internationally, speaking in this particular area. Researchers from both countries are facing up to the urgent questions of our time. I had the opportunity to visit the Weizmann Institute during my last visit to Israel, where people are searching for new therapies for diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's. They're developing new technologies to protect our environment. They are cooperating in the field of basic research across the board, and I think that the extension, the further deepening of our relationship to include the humanities is indeed a very important contribution. Your Minister for Science is a mathematician. Ours is a theologian. So I think that is a good combination to get humanities and sciences involved together. Israeli-German cooperation is excellent, and we've got numerous concrete examples of that. We work together in the field of water and irrigation in Africa, where we've established a trilateral cooperation with African countries. We all know full well that Israel has extraordinary expertise in the area of irrigation in saving scarce resources. And when one considers all the beneficial things one can do in the interest of Africa if one cooperates, I think one should keep going. We've started with Ethiopia, with Ghana, we'll continue in Kenya, and if I have my way, this is to be enlarged continuously. Cooperation between Israeli and German universities are lively, are very active. We've got more than 100 of such cooperative activities. We founded the Minerva Foundation of the Max Planck Society, which led to the establishment of 30 Minerva research centers at Israeli universities, financed by the Minerva Foundation, the University of Tel Aviv being one of these 30 universities. I know this very well from reports of my friends and relatives, the extent of the exchange and how normal that kind of exchange has become amongst the academics and the scientists. And that kind of cooperation works well, is of the greatest importance in the 21st century, because it is education, training and research that continue to offer the key to economic prosperity. And this is not only true for Israel and Germany, it's true for the region as a whole. Education, training, research. I talked about this a minute ago with the Israeli President, Shimon Peres. Education and research, science, those are the areas that open up the ground for freedom of thought and thus lay the foundation for democracy. Prosperity is also a result of research, of innovation, creative activity. And I see good opportunities for a close Israeli-German cooperation in the development of new technologies. For the first time, we've organized an Israeli-German Innovation Day. That was last year in December in Berlin, which was an impressive proof of very close contacts here. New partnerships are forming in the area of technological competencies, leading to economic success and progress. Basic research turning into applied research, and that going into the economic sphere. That is the development that we have to keep an eye on. Biotechnology, information communication technologies, energy, and that is for Germany very important, and environmental technologies. These are areas for further cooperation. The University of Tel Aviv is closely linked with Germany as a consequence of numerous partnerships and cooperation in projects. Since 2007, we have the Marcel Ranitzky Chair for German Literature at the University of Tel Aviv. And I should like to thank the German Friends of Tel Aviv University for donating that chair because this chair testifies to the immense wealth of Jewish art and literature. And this brings me to another very important area whose importance continues to grow, and that's the area of cultural exchange. A growing number of young scholarship holders, students, scientists, and artists bring both peoples closer. In Berlin and Tel Aviv, a lively cultural scene has developed over the years. The art and music scene of both cities is closely linked, and I'm happy to see how many Israeli tourists have come to Berlin over the last few years, and that their number is on the rise. The representatives of the German airlines talked about this morning. It's not travel in one direction only, because the number of German tourists to Israel has almost doubled since 2006. Tel Aviv has become a very attractive destination, as are other regions in Israel. And there's, of course, the Jewish community in Germany that has close ties to Israel, family ties, friendships that ensure a lively back and forth travel across the Mediterranean. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, when we look at all these developments, we realize that Israeli-German relations cover much more than the topic of the Mideast peace process, which, of course, is the focus of public attention and our attention. But for me, it's also very important, and thus I thank you for focusing on this broad area of exchanges between both our countries. Israeli-German ties are much more than discussions about political developments in the regions. Our relations are based on shared values and interests. We are partners in shaping globalization, in defending our shared values. Our relations are lively, are an expression of our variety. We continue to acknowledge our historical responsibility for the past. And as a consequence, our relations are unique. Thus, I would like to say that in accepting this honor of an honorary doctorate of the University of Tel Aviv, I would like to express a hope and make a promise. I would like to express my hope that relations between both our countries will continue to grow and become ever stronger. I want to do my bit to ensure that this is so, and I would like to thank all those who have worked on a daily basis to ensure that this is so. And I link this up to a promise, a personal promise, a promise of mine, that I will always acknowledge Germany's enduring responsibility for the horrors of the past. We are confident and aware that it is only in that way that we can shape our future together. Once again, thank you very much for this particular honor. As I said, it will only heighten my interest for the work of your university, for the success of your activities. It was very interesting indeed, Professor Klafter, when you took me to a place where one hardly expected it, to show me that we're both listed there. I happen to be a recipient of the honorary doctorate of the University of Wrocław. And Professor Klafter received that very same honorary doctorate right after I received it. It's interesting. It's fascinating to see. Thank you very much indeed. All the best to all of you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Merkel. And ladies and gentlemen, that important address by Chancellor Merkel concludes our special ceremony at Tel Aviv University. We would like you all to please remain seated until the procession has left the hall. Good afternoon. Shalom Rav.